Hey gang, it's Kara and Dobie Joe again. Hey listen, this is lesson number 2. Let's get busy, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to learn the 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise, which is very, very important, and I want you to use it every time you play your guitar. It's a great warm-up exercise, and it's a great way to really listen to the notes you're playing and make sure your fingers are placed exactly where you want them to be placed. Okay? Let's talk about it. Let's start on page 10. On page 10, at the top of the page, we talk about hand position and keeping your palm, the palm of your hand, parallel to the guitar's neck. Okay? Right now the line that is my palm right here and the line that is the bottom of my guitar neck are parallel to each other. This is not parallel. Okay? Let me show you the reason why I want you to keep your hand parallel. When your hand is parallel, 1, 2, 3, 4, your fingers are going to fall right where you want them on those first 4 frets. Okay? If it's not parallel, you're going to do this. 1, 2, 3, and then your whole hand has to move to get 4. Okay? So if you're over here like this, your 4th fret is that far away. See how far away that is? If I got to reach to my 4 really fast, I've got to move my whole hand. If I got my hand parallel, all I have to do is drop my pinky down. Okay? All right, very important. Keep that hand parallel to the neck. Okay? Now, in the next figure on this page, page 10, I'm showing you how I do not want you to wrap your thumb around the front of your guitar. And let me tell you why. When you are playing single notes or chords, you want to be up on your fingertips as much as possible so you have nice firm down pressure and you're up on your fingertips so that when you play a chord, you're not going to accidentally be touching the string next to it with that finger. Okay? Very important to stay up on those fingertips. I often tell my younger students that if you can imagine a train going down the track and it gets down to your fingers, it needs to be able to keep on going underneath those fingers. You don't want your fingers laying flat across your fretboard like this. Okay? Train can't get through. All right? Be up on your fingertips. All right? A lot of that has to do with your thumb. If your thumb is wrapped, let me show you, for example, a C chord that you're going to learn down the line. C chord looks like this. Can you kind of see the shadows under my fingers and how my fingers are up on their tips? Now watch when I show you my thumb. Watch what happens to those fingers that are up on the tips. As I show you my thumb, those other fingers collapse, okay? And they start touching the strings next to them and they're not supposed to. So keep your thumb back there just like I show you in that diagram. This muscle right here is going to do a lot of the squeezing between your notes and your chords, all right? So you will actually, when you're giving yourself a really good workout, particularly when we get to the back of the book and we're talking about bar chords, you're really going to feel the burn right here in this muscle, okay? So this muscle acts as your main muscle to really squeeze your fingers down on that fretboard, okay? Makes sense? I hope so. I also make a note here on page 10 that I want you to keep the nails on the left hand good and short. When I look at my nails, if I look at them like this, like I'm looking at the palm of my hand, I don't see any nail over the top of my fingertips. When I look at them from the front, I see plenty of skin over the top of them, so my nail sets way back off of my fingertip, okay? If you've got long nails, you can't stay up on the tips, okay? It will make your finger collapse, all right? Just common sense, all right? So on page 11, we're going to do the 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise. Now, we haven't talked about what tablature is yet. We're going to talk about that in a few pages. So today, I'm just using it. I'm throwing you off into the deep end of the pool, and we're going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise together. Now, what this means, what you're looking at, oh, there was one other thing. When you press down on a fret with a finger, this is very important. You don't want to be way down here. So here I am. Let's use the 3rd fret, for example. Okay, there's the 3rd fret of my guitar. When I put my finger down on it now, I'll be like this, but I'm going to go like this to show you a little easier what I'm talking about. I want you to press on what I refer to as the high side of the fret. So you're up here, not down here. And let me show you exactly why that is. Listen to the tone I get out of this. Okay, that's a nice tone. Listen to it as I come back on the fret, what happens. Hear those buzzes? And then I get so far back, it's hard to get anything out at all. Now I'll work my way up. Real buzzy, better, better, and that's the best, okay? So at any point in time when you're doing this 1, 2, 3, 4 exercise, whatever fingers you're using, I want you to make sure they're on what I refer to as the high side of the fret. Okay? Now in this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to use our first finger on our first fret, our second finger on our second fret, third finger on our third fret, and our fourth finger on the fourth fret. Yes, your pinky. You're going to build some muscle up in that pinky, and it might feel pretty wimpy right now, and you might say, I've never been able to use my pinky. I want you to retell that story to yourself and say, Kara's going to help me learn how to use this pinky, and through this exercise it's going to get stronger, and then it's going to be a very usable finger on my hand. Okay? You can play with your pinky. I know you can. You just got to go slowly and work toward that goal, and this exercise will help. Okay? So what we do is we go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the low E string. Okay? So it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. See how I used all 4 of my fingers? Then we're going to do the same thing on our A string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we do the same thing on our D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. The G string. Okay? The B string. And the high E string. Okay? Now once you've mastered this exercise, you can also try it backwards. And that's sometimes a really good practice because, believe it or not, I've had students that can play it perfectly forward and then just mess it all up when they play it backwards. You know what that means? They need to work on that backwards part more than they're working on the forward part. Okay? That makes sense? All right, I probably say that way too many times, but I want to make sure that everything is landing between here and here so you can retain it, okay? If you can't, if I'm saying something that you don't understand, social media, contact me on social media and we'll have a talk. All right, I'm going to use the metronome. I don't think we've used that yet. And I use a metronome that looks like this. It's way, well, for today's standards, it's old school. It's not the old kind that you wound up and it ticked like this across the piano, but this is still pretty old school to today's standards. Now you can find a metronome or a click track online. You can download an app on your phone if you want. I like this one because there are no bells or whistles on it. It just gives me that good wood tone knock. Okay, nothing else. And then as I scroll around this way, it goes faster. Now you'll notice too, my 61-year-old eyes, I've used whiteout to make some of these numbers that I use often a little bit bigger and easier to see. That's what's going on there. Now the other thing I do is I run an adapter. Actually, it's just the same kind of plug that your earplugs have on the end of them, and then it comes out, and the other end of it is a 1/4 inch. You can buy these. I wish I could say Radio Shack because that's where we used to answer all of our questions, right? But you can get these online. It's just the same size plug. I don't remember what it is right now that your earphones would hook into, and then at the other end of this is a 1/4 inch jack, and I plug that right into my amplifier so I can make it really loud and unavoidable to my students. Okay, now I've got that set right now on way low. It's set down there on about 50. And what we're going to do is we're going to play this exercise on page 11, and we're going to go every other beat. Let me show you what I mean by that before we start it together. It'll sound like this. Tick, 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 like that. And we're going to go through all of that together. Okay, every other beat, nice and slow. Okay, I mean it. I want you to do this slowly. If you go real fast, you're not going to know when you're messing your notes up. You're just going to buzz right by them. They might sound like that, but you won't be on it long enough to hear that. Okay, so go slowly with me. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Patient. Use that pinky. It can do it. It'll get easier. I promise. This is also a great way to work on your calluses. Every finger needs to go in exactly the right place because you're developing muscle memory right now. Every time you do an exercise like this with me, you're telling your fingers, this is exactly what I want you to do every time I fret a note. Okay? So we're going slowly and as cleanly as we possibly can. We're we're telling our fingers, hey, we are serious and this is what we want you to do. Okay, that's the last one on a high E string. We're going to do that exercise one more time without me talking, right? Here we go. 1, 2, patience, my dear. 3, 4, here we go. Listen for good tone. A little over halfway there. Okay, so that was way down there at a pretty low speed. And I want you to keep it at that speed for a while until you feel really, really comfortable. Let's say that you do that at exactly the same tempo that we were just set at, which I said was about 50. Every time you do this exercise, you can try taking it up just a couple of notches. Like the next notch on this one is 52. It goes from 50 to 52. So the next time I try this exercise, I might take it to 52. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to remind you of this technique all the time. You're always going to want to play anything I give you in this book with a click track on, okay? And let's say you can play it perfectly at 72, and then you try 76, and you start flubbing up a little bit. You got to back it up. You got to back it up and do it at the slower speeds again, and keep working your way up toward that number that just blocked you, okay? So let's say you got stopped at 72, you couldn't make it to 76, and then all of a sudden, after you've backed up and gone forward so many times, you can finally get through 76 perfectly. Then you go to the next number, okay? And you keep working your way up. You're going to find numbers either on your phone app or whatever you're using. The higher you go, you're going to find numbers that you can't play that fast accurately. You need to back it up and start challenging that number. Okay, I hope that's clear. I'm going to be saying that a lot to you. On page 12, that is an opportunity for you to test yourself on the parts and pieces of the guitar. So if you look at page 7, I've drawn out some diagrams for you. Your truss rod that's just dead in the center of this illustration, it might be one of the most important things for you to remember right now, especially if your guitar is new or if you've pulled it out of a closet after years, you might need a truss rod adjustment. Now what that means is if I could take this top layer of the frets, this fretboard, and heat it up with a lot of intense heat and pull it right off of there, what you would see underneath would be the board and a big slot going down the neck, okay? In that slot there's a metal bar. That metal bar can be loosened, allowing the neck and the strings to pull it forward like this, or it can be tightened, stiffening it up, okay? That is what you do when you want to adjust the action of your guitar. The action is the space between the strings and the fretboard, okay? So truss rods need to be adjusted. Sometimes you access a fretboard or a truss rod down here. Sometimes you access one through the truss rod cover up at the top. Most importantly, do not attempt this by yourself. Ever do not do it. Things can go horribly wrong. Take your guitar into a knowledgeable luthier, repair person, or take it back to the store from which you purchased it and have them adjust it. Most guitar shops or music shops are, it's in their best interest to make sure that instrument stays playing really easily and good for you. So develop a relationship with your local store and take it in for adjustments from time to time, okay? All right, so that's page 7. It tells you the names of the strings, which I didn't go over with you yet, I don't believe. Well, we sort of did in the first lesson, didn't we, when we tuned? Okay, and all the different parts. It's important to know what these part names are so that when you're out in the world talking to other guitar players, or if anything ever goes wrong with your guitar, you'll know what it's called and you can speak about it with knowledge, okay? If you jump to page 12, then I've given you exactly the same diagram with all the blanks to fill in. So that's a good little exercise to do. It's also a nice thing to copy out and challenge your friends on from time to time. All right, so that was page 12. Next time we get together, we're going to start on page 13, and we are going to learn our first 2 chords together. Okay, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.